My name's Angela and I'm a visually impaired designer. Different reading formats for the visually impaired. Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about different formats for reading for those who are visually impaired and blind. Now this could include leisure reading or academic reading. And some different formats that I'll go over are regular print books, large print books, Braille books, audiobooks, and a couple of other different formats. I will share my personal experiences with the different formats and my preferences as someone who is visually impaired from birth. I will also show you some examples of the different types of formats as we talk about them. And real quick, for those of you who are new, my name's Angela. I'm visually impaired and I'm also a designer and just finished graduate school last year and I'm now working as a UX designer, and my background is in graphic design as well. And if you want to see awesome videos about design and visual impairment, subscribe to my channel below so that you can see any future videos. Alright, let's get to it. Now let's first talk about academic reading. I went to 9 years of university, including my master's and my undergraduate degrees. And so that's a lot of reading over time. As someone who was in college for so many years, you might be surprised to hear that I actually really don't like reading. In fact, I've pretty much hated it my whole life. And I never really understood why I didn't like reading so much. I would always find myself starting books or trying to read textbooks, but never being able to finish them. And even cutting corners on homework assignments that required a ton of reading. I would also find myself falling asleep to books all the time. In fact, for a while, when I was having a hard time falling asleep, my solution was picking up a book that I needed to read for school and I would fall asleep to it no problem. Now this didn't help me get my reading assignments done, but it sure helped me get a little bit more sleep. If we're talking about leisure reading in my own personal time, I probably have read less than a couple of handfuls just on my own because I hated reading so much. When I say this, I mean like printed books before audiobooks were really a thing. The only book series that I've ever read on the edge of my seat, having to read the whole thing and couldn't put it down, was The Hunger Games. And this was my first time really understanding people when they said the thrill of reading books was just they couldn't put it down. This was in college, the first time this happened to me, and I was not used to this at all. It wasn't until I was in college that I realized why I hated reading books so much. Reading was so difficult on my eyes, and I wasn't even realizing that was the problem. Sure, I knew that I had a visual impairment and that I couldn't see as well as other people, but it never occurred to me that this was the reason why I hated reading so much. And for me, reading requires so much more energy than the average person with sight. It was super draining to me and was not fun at all. But after I read the book, The Hunger Games, I was convinced that there were other books out there that I would really enjoy reading. And so I was determined to find ways to improve the quality of my reading. I also needed to find a better solution to help me to actually stay caught up on my academic reading. After all, in grad school you do so much reading in such a short amount of time that I really needed to hone in and find a solution for reading better. Now let's talk about glasses for a minute. I have had several pairs of glasses, but they always give me headaches and it just makes it more difficult for me to see things because it becomes blurry and it makes it not as easy for me to see after I've been wearing them for a while. Glasses have never really worked for me and my vision isn't correctable, so it wasn't really doing much for me at all anyways. But maybe for you or your child, a good solution would be getting some reading glasses that really help them see. Now these could be prescription or non-prescription glasses. Now this does help me with short amounts of reading, just not long text. So I will still wear reading glasses here and there when I have a short body of text to read or maybe just a document or something, but it just doesn't work for me for long-term reading or leisure reading. I also tried reading regular print books with a magnifying glass, but this didn't work for me either. This also hurt my eyes and made them sore. And it was just hard for me to maneuver the book around under the magnifying glass and be effective and read large bodies of text. Now that you know a little bit about my past with reading, let's talk about some different formats and their pros and cons. So I'll be talking about 3 different print formats, and then we'll talk about some digital or other options for reading. So first we have regular print books, we have large print books, and then there's also Braille books. Now for this video, I've chosen 3 books to use as examples to illustrate my points. First, I have a children's book, Green Eggs and Ham. An easier and simple children's chapter book, Charlotte's Web, and as mentioned, one of my favorite books, The Hunger Games. And this is the first book. Now let's take a look at these regular print books so we can use it as reference when we look at the large print and the Braille books. First, looking a little closer at Green Eggs and Ham, it has words and illustrations throughout the book. The illustrations and the words in this book are both very important. The words are fairly large, as that is pretty typical for a children's book, to help them learn to read better, and there's just less words altogether. Now next, the classic Charlotte's Web by E. Webb White. This is a shorter chapter book that is more for the beginner reader. Even though it's a chapter book, it still has some illustrations spread throughout the book. The text is pretty average to high in size and can be read fairly easily. Now let's talk a little bit more about the format of the first book of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. It's a decent sized book with 272 pages. It isn't a super long book, but I would say it's pretty average. There are no illustrations and it's just strictly text. The text in this book is pretty typical. It's a serif font and is about 12 to 14 point font, which is probably fairly easy for someone with regular sight to see. Alright, now let's talk about the large print books. I got my large print and Braille book examples from the Utah State Library for the Blind. Every state has a library for the blind, and so this might be a helpful resource for you if you're visually impaired or blind. So I'd encourage you to check it out. It's typically a free service to help you read if you need some assistance. I looked to see if there was a large print Green Eggs and Ham book, but I wasn't able to find them, which makes sense because the text in the book is fairly large already. So let's take a look at the Charlotte's Web large print book and The Hunger Games. Now here I'm showing the large print books and the Green Eggs and Ham side by side. If you can see, you can tell that there's a significant difference between the regular print book and the large print books. Large print books were a great solution for me. It really made it easier on my eyes to read, and it definitely makes my eyes less sore. And when I was in high school and junior high, I had the opportunity to request specific textbooks that I wanted to be in large print from my vision teachers. So I encourage you to see if this is a resource for you as well. Growing up as a family, we would read the scriptures on a daily basis together, and my parents bought me large print scriptures, which really made it easier for me to participate with the rest of the family. This is something that I always appreciated because, like I said, it was hard for me before I received that large print book. Now, as a quick note, for those of you who are parents with children who are visually impaired, please note that it can be a little embarrassing to have large print books. And so being sensitive to that and being aware that your child might be embarrassed by the fact that they have large print books that look different than the people around them. Now, as far as Braille books go, there's definitely a bigger learning curve because not only do you have to know how to read, but you have to know how to read Braille. And a lot of people who learn Braille learn grade 1 Braille, and it's a long time before they can actually read grade 2 Braille, which most chapter books are in grade 2 Braille. In my next video or two, I'll be talking about the difference between grade 1 and grade 2 Braille in more depth and different formats that Braille is being used and why it's important for people to learn Braille even when there's so much technology available. Now, everyone's going to have a different preference when it comes to printed items, whether they prefer to read Braille books, large print books, or regular print books. And you just need to figure out for yourself what's best for you or your child. Here we have Green Eggs and Ham in the regular format with illustrations and print. And here we have it with the text and the Braille alone, no illustrations. Here we have Charlotte's Web in regular print, large print, and Braille. The regular print and the large print books both have images along with it, but the Braille version doesn't have illustrations. Then we have Hunger Games, which is in regular print, large print, and the Braille version, which is 3 volumes just for book 1. Now let's talk about audiobooks. This is personally my favorite because I can listen to someone else read it to me. I don't have to use my eyes at all. I can even close my eyes if I want to and listen to it. Now there's a couple of different ways you can get audiobooks. Now, as I explained before, through the Library for the Blind, through my state, I am able to get what's called book on tape still. Now this is an older, outdated version of audiobooks, but it still works for someone who wants to listen to books, and it's a free resource. You don't have to pay for a monthly subscription or anything, which is definitely a plus. A couple of downsides though is you have to continually be mailing them in and requesting the books, and so it's not as instant and you have to wait a little bit more time. You also have to store them and have the device to play these audiobooks. And so I think the most common way for people to listen to audiobooks is through platforms like Audible. This way you have instant access to books that you want. You just pay for a monthly subscription, and then you can pick the books that you want to read, and you just listen to them, and you don't have to use your eyes at all. I do know that some public libraries also provide some audiobooks or digital downloads where you can listen to the books for free as long as you're renting them and return them. Meaning if it's a digital download, you just have access to it for a certain amount of time. And so like any book, you have to decide for yourself if you want to own the book or if you just want to borrow it for a short amount of time. This could really make a difference as to what platform you use. For me, I absolutely love Audible because I can listen to all the books that I want and I don't have to read it. And I have access anytime that I want. You can sign up for Audible through me, and I'll put the link below, and you'll get a 30-day free trial and also 1 free book from Audible. Using Audible has really increased the amount of books that I've read, and I really love the fact that I've found a way to enjoy reading. Listening to audiobooks can be a lot faster than reading a book on your own, especially when you have a visual impairment. One major con to always relying on audiobooks, however, is decreases your ability to know grammar and spelling. This is a really big thing that is an issue for people with visual impairments. If you're not learning through Braille or large print books, grammar and spelling can be really a struggle. And so I think finding a balance between printed books and audiobooks is a good idea to make sure that you're literate and that you're educated. A couple of other formats that I haven't mentioned are eBooks. So you can have like a Kindle or an iPad that has the books on there for you, and you can usually increase the font size or change the background and customize it so that it's more accessible for you to read it. Or there's screen readers that will read books for you that are online, and you can use this on like PDFs or other formats that are digital. So you just kind of have to weigh like which format you really prefer yourself. And maybe it's not all one, like I was saying. Maybe sometimes it's a print format, maybe sometimes it's an audio one, or maybe you really just prefer ebook because it's a good mixture between print and you can listen to it if you want to and customize it to how you like it. For me, the two that I use the most are audiobooks, and I also use ebooks quite a bit. And ebooks were definitely more helpful to me when I was in college, because I could get textbooks more easily through an ebook, and then I could increase the size of the font or zoom into pictures or whatever I needed to more easily than listening to the book. And it's pretty different than listening to a textbook versus reading a textbook. Alright, so this was a lot of information, but I hope that you found it helpful. And if you have any questions for me, or if I forgot any formats that might be helpful to someone else who might be watching this video, please feel free to comment below what your favorite formats for reading are and why. Now, thank you for coming to my channel and watching this video. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel below and turn on the notification bell if you want to see more. I hope you all have a great day. Bye!